As we watch in real time in the states that are going to be swing states, Florida, Arizona, the issue of abortion is playing out. It's the 12th of April. In 19 days, Florida will have a 6-week ban. 2 days ago, the Supreme Court in Arizona resurrected a law that was written in 1864 by a misogynistic man who married a 15-year-old and then divorced her 2 years later. He was everything that you would think as a repugnant human being. That's who he was. Arizona and Nevada were a territory. There were less than 6,000 people between the two areas, and they still wanted to write legislation about abortion. It's always been about misogyny, and it's always been about control. The people in Arizona are not happy. If the Attorney General becomes a Republican, which can happen with an election, it was 280 votes that made it a Democrat, a Republican Attorney General can enforce that law. That's all it is. The Attorney General said, I'm not enforcing the law. It's still on the books. And as long as the legislators in the House are Republican, and it's a slight majority, they can't get it off the books. There's a governor that's a Democrat. There's a minority of Democrats in the House for them in Arizona. I lived there from 1996 to 1998. When John McCain ran for Senate in 1996 and I voted, no one ran against him in the Senate seat. There was not a Democratic person running against him. I registered to be a Republican in Arizona because it was so red I had to find the least offensive Republican to vote for. That's 96 to 98. And these issues were not nearly as prevalent. They were there, but it was only the real people on the edge that felt this way. Now it's mainstream. And you see people like Kari Lake trying to backpedal. A year ago, she was perfectly happy that Roe v. Wade got destroyed. She was perfectly happy to keep women oppressed. The GOP is trying to create a handmaid's tale. States like Arizona, states like Florida, can potentially turn from red to blue. It happened in Florida in 2012, the last time there was an abortion issue on the ballot, and we also have marijuana on the ballot too. Abortion and marijuana, two things the GOP do not want their constituents to have control of. Every single time abortion has come up on the ballot since June of 2022, which is 7 times, not counting what's happening as we go forward on November 11th, abortion rights has won. I don't see that being any different. People are going to come out because the May 1st date changing it to 6 weeks changes the numbers for everyone. My personal family history. My ex-wife has a disease called Tay-Sachs. Tay-Sachs comes from people with ancestry from Eastern Europe, Jewry. And her mother had 3 children. Stacy's the only one to survive. Both of her brothers were born stillborn, one in 1969 and one in 1974. And it was so awful that in 1975, Stacy's mom lost her, she had a hysterectomy because she kept on having sons. So we were aware of this. And when we were pregnant in 1998, we had an amniocentesis done at 9 weeks. Generally speaking, they're done about 15 or 16. But after seeing the traumatic effects that losing 2 children had on my ex-mother-in-law, I wanted to make sure that didn't happen to my wife at the time. We were very, very fortunate that Jacqueline was a girl and it was not XY and you're a guy, because we would have had the abortion the same day so that Stacy didn't go through that. That's not going to be available. My daughter carries the same genetic markers. We got the testing done because she was concerned. So if she was living in Florida and she was pregnant and she found out after the fact that, because you find out after 7 weeks is when the chemicals was released XY and you're a guy, and XX you're a female. And all zygotes are female. We all start out as female, which is why every human being has nipples, for those of you who don't know. This is all rudimentary information that's available. I taught anatomy and physiology. No, I took anatomy and physiology in 2004 so I could teach IB and AP psychology. That's over 20 years ago. I'm able to recall this information. It's not difficult to recall. Education is imperative. It's how we're going to save lives. It's how we're going to convince the people that are still undecided about these issues to vote accordingly. Please remember to vote true and vote blue. The women in your life will depend on that decision. They will either be wearing red like this if the Republicans win, the habits of Gilead, or not if the Democrats win. Have a nice weekend.